Hi everyone, and thank you for coming to Declutter 101 here at the Thompson Free Library. I'm Kim Corey with Finely Sorted Organizing, and I have a packed slideshow for you today. So hopefully I'll get through them all and we'll have some time for question and answer after. So as we go through the slides, you might want to take notes. If you don't have a pen and paper, Kim has some here for you, and there's also a handout available as well. So we'll start with the first one here. According to becomingminimalist.com, there are 5 times as many storage facilities as Starbucks. 26% of Americans cannot park their car in the car garage. The average 10-year-old has 200 toys, and 66% of Americans admit to feeling anxious in a messy home. So we all know there's a good reason to have an organizer in town, and that would be me. I've been working for Finely Sorted Organizing as my company since the year 2000, and the list of kinds of people at the top and bottom of the slide there are all kinds of people that I've helped with organizing. Cuts across all kinds of lifestyles. Everybody seems to need it. I do both on-site and virtual organizing on the right-hand slide there. But before I came to organizing in the year 2000, I did a host of other things, which is fairly typical of professional organizers to have a widely varied job background. And you can see I was a teacher in Japan in the upper left. I worked in St. Bart's in the Caribbean for a yacht services company. I did some film and video work as a production assistant. I worked for the heir to the Wall Street Journal paper as a personal assistant, which included a lot of decluttering. And I launched a line of one-of-a-kind clothes from reclaimed fabric called Apron Strings, and there's a couple of wedding dresses that I made there in the bottom left-hand side. Also made it a big, I never had kids, so my career path involved going to another country every year as much as I could do throughout my adult life, and the countries at the bottom are some of the places that I've been. So getting into the meat of clutter, there are many causes of the clutter chaos. Starting at the top, we all have a natural instinct to gather things and fill up our spaces with things we could possibly need. So this is something that we already start with, and then added on to that, we have to the right, many of us have the burden of dealing with the Depression era mentality passed on from our parents. So a lot of people who are middle-aged right now are having households full of things that their parents had. Then with the economic boom, it's now cheaper to buy new than to repair things, so that leaves a whole host of other things lying around the household. Then with technology everywhere fueling consumerism, it's not easy to look at one of your devices and not see something advertised that you might want. Then there's the issue of people more becoming a 2-income households now, so there's no one left around to do the organizing if it's not a natural or learned skill of somebody individual in the partnership. Organizing skills are often not taught at home, especially if the parents don't have them. And then organizing skills are not taught in schools. Maybe home economics in the older days might have taught something like this. So it's easy to see how clutter can get out of control, lots of reasons. So what is it I do as a professional home organizer? I work on solo house cleanout projects when people are trying to get a house on the market. I work one-on-one with clients, both on-site and virtually via Zoom. I ask a lot of who, what, where, when, and why questions to help the client get unstuck and make decisions about an item. I offer emotional support and unbiased input to help the client focus. I provide accountability by being scheduled into somebody's calendar. I suggest and implement systems that keep the chaos from reoccurring. This is an illustration of a virtual session You can see that I'm talking into my computer, watching her, and she set up her device pointed at the area of target that we were working on. In that case, this was somebody trying to sell their home after years of raising 3 kids and had a basement full of various belongings. We got through about 6 boxes in an hour of virtual organizing. This is an example of a target area. It was a multi-purpose nook in the kitchen, so it functioned as both kitchen, craft, and office. They had their home action files in that drawer down there on the right, on the left-hand side of each photo, and there's a before and after that. One woman's husband got sick, and for years she let her taxes go, so I helped her to file 3 years of taxes, and you can see that she's standing in front of the piles that I've started to make, organizing her. She would just put papers in bins, and just everything that came her way, it would go in that bin, and then she would move that bin and start another bin, and so each bin was filled with a wide variety of things, and here I am separating it into the parts. So she let me take a picture of her looking overwhelmed at my piles. And then to top it all off, I usually search in the main Treasury unclaimed money database. She had about $11,000 worth of unclaimed money from insurance and retirement accounts that she didn't know about. So that was a win, quite a win situation, organizing situation. This was an industry shipping area I did in Brewer. They were moving from wholesale to retail, so they needed to make a shipping area to send out their product. This was a home, this was the new apartment that I moved into from Bangor to Orono, somebody downsizing from a 2-bedroom to a 1-bedroom. So you can see that I made sure all the pieces fit in the new space. The right-hand side was a family selling, because the real estate industry is going so hot these days, somebody left a note on their door saying, "We love your house, can we buy it?" And the price was so right, they decided they needed to get help and get out of there and sell that house if they could. So that was, those boxes right there represent about 2 hours of work of all the kitchen things to the right. And to the left was a doctor moving from Bangor to Oregon, and he wanted all his things in plastic crates, which is more protective, but it certainly does triple the cost of packaging when you're in moving. Here's an example of a little sewing kit that I put together just for myself. That's what I have on hand, find that I need. Everybody has a different idea of how much sewing supplies that they need, and here's a little container I found somewhere and put together that for myself. Here's a home in Blue Hill that they were moving out of and wanted to rent, so I basically cleaned that up and organized it, moved it all to the new home, and left it in a staged manner so that people coming in to look to see if they wanted to rent it, it would look attractive to some degree. Here's an example of some buttons that I organized for the theater. You can see if you're looking for a particular kind of button, it's a lot easier on the right. And that's also a good example of labeling, where you don't really have to, don't let the perfectionism keep you from going ahead and using just masking tape and a Sharpie for labels. Some people get all hung up that they have to get a label maker, and then they don't have the right size tape for the label maker. So just use whatever you have. Done is better than perfect. This is an example of a cross-country move I helped unpack. the movers had moved all these wardrobe boxes into the room, and by the end of the day, those were all gone and broken down and back out for disposal. You can see a picture of the kitchen there. Everything was unpacked and set up completely so that they could have breakfast the next morning. Their whole house was unpacked in about 3 days, except for the art put up on the walls. That was in Camden. Here's an example of a file system I redid in California. The before afters on the left there, the before pictures on the left there, you can see that there are a lot of different colored files, and the tabs are in different places, and some of the files are overstuffed. So I emptied them out from the drawer, and you can see in the top how I categorize the papers into the various companies that will be represented in the new file system. And then I always have a pile of questions at the end to ask the client about. So if I'm doing something on my own, which was the case here, I'll fully go through and do this whole process by myself, and then I'll have this pile that I'll meet with the client to decide if you need to keep those papers and where they should live. In this case, he didn't want to buy new Pendaflex green files, which I recommend just going with one color because the various colors here have no signification. It's not like green represents financial, which some people do. When I first started off organizing, I tried that, and my clients couldn't keep on top of the supplies, so they didn't have a green folder when they needed one, or a matching tab, and it got to be too unwieldy. So I now recommend that people just buy the green Pendaflex hanging files for a system that has rails, and then manila insert folders that go inside those. But he didn't want to do that. He wanted to just use the folders that he had. Also, I put the tabs all along just one side, because it looks all nice when you see those posted on media going diagonal, but as soon as you add another file, then suddenly diagonal becomes some kind of weird hexagon shape, and it no longer has a meaning. So first place to start to bring organization to your home is to imagine what it could look like, and that's not hard to do when you see all these great pictures being posted on TV and Instagram and Facebook of these dream homes. So imagining how it would be to be more lean in the things in your homes, easier to clean, find what you need, easier to entertain and be ready to have people over to visit, and easier to move when it does come time for that. For most people, everyone has to move these days more and more. And then Einstein said, imagination is more important than knowledge, so I liked that quotation. So one thing that's really important to stay organized is to, if it's in your head and it's taking up head space, it's good to write it down, and that will be your capturing tool for the things that you have to complete in your life, whatever you think is a priority. Whether that's paper calendar or digital calendar, both of those can go with you. In that case, the paper one on the left is small enough where it could actually go with you to wherever you need in your pocketbook, versus those big calendars that lay on the desk that have the whole month. Those are not portable, so you have to think about portability and whether you need it to be backed up or not, which is possible with the digital version on the right. That's a screenshot of my calendar on one day. There's also an app called Toss, which I don't use myself, and I don't know any clients who use it, but I did find it. And if it helps somebody, then that would be good. It basically gives you something new to declutter every day. Then you want to guard your entrance. That's where the clutter starts. entrance to your computer, and your snail mail, and shopping. Unsubscribing from newsletters and mailing lists as much as possible, just to keep a balance of things that you do want to have come in and read. But usually, as soon as you make any request to something, they're sending you tons of mail into your inbox. So always go down to the bottom and find that unsubscribe button right away, so that you don't have to continually delete those things in the coming months. The same with paper. Do not mail and do not call. .org are things you could check out for getting off mailing lists of companies that partake in that system. And then be careful when you're shopping. Accumulating things is a joyful activity. I love to shop, and I actually have kind of a weakness for clothes. So I have closet has always been a challenge for me. But if you find yourself shopping, one thing that might help is to think, am I going to want to wash this or take it to the dry cleaner or lift it up and dust underneath it? And what could go wrong? Could there be something possibly wrong with this item that I'm buying, that it wouldn't fit my needs in some way? So try to find something wrong with it, and that will help you maybe not buy it if you don't really need it. Then if you want to start organizing, you can ask for help from an organizer. I work on site and virtually. If you're finding you're overwhelmed by a target area and you just don't know where to start, sometimes just a 1-hour session will get you motivated and into the mood, and you can continue on yourself. You'll want to limit distractions of cats and kids and incoming calls when you start to organize. Maybe put on some nice music and make sure you have some water, bags and bins to put things into that when you decide where they're going to go. So that's what I do. Sometimes it takes a hand to hold. Books are great. We all have an area where there's some organizing books. I once decluttered 12 organizing books out of a client's house, and she just couldn't do it any other way than having somebody come in and hold her hand through the process. The books just, I think they showed her good intention, and I'm sure she learned some things along the way, but she really needed somebody there to guide her. And there's a couple pictures of a refrigerator organizing session, and then getting through somebody's pile of papers virtually on the other side. And where do you want to start when you start organizing? I would suggest that you leave the sentimental things for the last part of organizing, because it's so heavily imbibed with emotion that if you're not good at organizing, that's good to leave till the end. And maybe you might be able to get some help when it comes to photographs. I love decluttering photographs with the family and categorizing when they visit. I think it's a great time. I mean, memories are for sharing. So, but I would leave that to the end, or when you have some help, and start with something that's more emotionally neutral, like the linen closet. Although there are always those grandmother's pillowcases that are in there that hang on for decades. You might want to start with the floor. That's where I always start before I get to the horizontal surfaces. And then you want to clear the decks as much as possible. Now, again, this is one of those perfect pictures that doesn't look very used. But this gives the idea that when you want to get into those cupboards and declutter them, you need to clear off a good space so that you have place to organize them and process the organization. And then as you empty a target area, instead of just pulling it all out at once, take out each item individually and categorize as you place them down. So when you pull it out of the space, decide what category it is and make a group for that category in those clear decks that you've made. And that side on the right was one cupboard filled with glassware, and you can see that I have the similar jars that are lined up. So once they're all lined up, then and categorized into their separate kinds of things, then you can start to decide which direction they will go. Will you keep them? Will you sell them on Facebook Marketplace, Craigslist, maybe the newspaper ad, a yard sale? Will you give it away to a family or friend, or donate to Goodwill or another small church local thrift store that you have around? Or will you toss it, or will you shred, or do you have recycle? So once you have your category, you might want to get rid of some mugs. That's a good place to start. Everybody always has too many mugs. My most recent virtual session, she had a mug that was given to her that, she liked, but it heated up in the microwave too hot. So it was in the collection, but she never used it for that reason. So when you pick up each item and look at it, and I ask those who, what, where, when, why questions, I suggested to repurpose it as like a pencil holder somewhere if she really liked the mug. So these kinds of ideas I come up with during the session to help people coordinate what they want to do with things. And for those people that like to craft, I always, say there's tons of craft materials available at donation thrift stores and secondhand stores. So there's no need to, buy a huge amount and store it in your home when you have these kinds of supplies available. Maybe some of you have heard of Marie Kondo, the Japanese author of The Life-Changing Magic of Tidying Up. It's her motto to say, does it spark joy? So this is a good way to, when you're going through and editing categories of items from your cupboards, closets, to say, if it's not something that you actually use, then, and you're keeping it for sentimental purposes, you might ask, is it joy, represent joy to me? Because some people, I had one client who had this quilt of an ancestor who she really didn't like and have fond feelings for, and it just occurred to her when I was with her that she didn't have to hang on to that if it didn't make her feel good. So that's one way for you to help you categorize things about how they feel to you and whether you should keep them for that reason. Check expiration dates and medications, foods, sunscreens. And then for those little items that you love, do keep them. I thought it was great. This is my great grandfather up here in Aroostook County, who apparently had this little hat. So I thought, wasn't that cute? And what a great picture it made. And if I had that hat, I'd probably hang it on a wall like a picture, so that you can both use it for the picture opportunity and have it as a little decor as well. So you want to edit things once you decide what they mean to you, if they're a good memory or bad memory. Decide where you want to keep them in your home. The mask in the middle, for example, instead of keeping the item out if it's broken to remind yourself to repair, you might want to relocate that to the garage, a box of things that needs to be repaired, and then represent it on your calendar somewhere that says repair broken mask on a Sunday when you might have time. So in that case, that way the item is off the decks, so it's nice and clear visually, but you still have it represented of the thing that you have to do with that item on your calendar. Kids art, there's always a plethora of kids art in my clients' homes. So once you decide and pick out the finer things for display, you might want to relocate the mass for further editing maybe a year later, to a closet that's in a guest room that's kind of out of the way. If you have a collection, why not display them? My aunt has a wonderful collection of antiques, and I've always loved how she displayed them in her home, and this is an example she has up on her walls. So if you have a collection of things that you like, try to figure out a way to enjoy them somehow. Here's some organizing tools. This is my jewelry holder. I got at Home Depot, actually. They have developed their home design line, and that fit exactly how many necklaces I had. I'm wearing one, so the one is missing one. And the earrings on the bottom and bracelets and rings all have a spot. That's all my jewelry collection. So once you find out what you have in your collection, then you can find the device to store it. And then I love these laundry baskets because they bend up, the wires bend up into a circle if you want, and as light as a feather as well. This is also an illustration of what I do when something has a stain on it. I drape it over the laundry basket to remind myself I have to treat that before putting it into the laundry. Uniformity is important. As you can see, the hangers on the left, even though they're different colors, they're the same type of hanger, and then the boxes are the same. So visually, that is more calming and peaceful for people to look at, for yourself to, when you're going to grab something that you want, so that you don't have to, so that if the hangers are different kinds of hangers, then that indicates a difference, but you want them to be the same because they all function in the same manner, and you want the clothing item to be the thing that is different that you focus on. Lots of reasons to have clear or matte, opaque containers. In that case, the spices are pretty to look at in the kitchen, but you might have a situation where you don't want the kids to see where the candy is, so you might prefer not to have clear containers. And then there's plastic versus glass. So there's lots of things to consider when it comes to containers. This is how I file clothing. These t-shirts are all folded so that the design of that t-shirt is revealed in the fold, and it's not that hard to get into doing that. That drawer is a little packed more than I would like, but it does, each piece shows, so that if you have two black ones, you can still see the design of them in the fold, so you don't have to pull it out to see what shirt it is. And you also see it all at one glance when you pull out the drawer, so you don't have to further find in the layers the t-shirt that you want. Here's a sweater hack that might be useful for some of you if you have a little extra space in your hanging closet. Everybody has different unique situations, so that's what makes organizing very much of an art when I go to different places. If you fold the sweater in half on the torso and put the hanger upside down in the armpit, and then drape the arm and the torso over it, you can hang it like my sweaters there on the right. And you can see that's if you have enough room in your closet. Most people don't, but I like that because it still has a fold along the center, but less wrinkles than if I were to fold it and put it on a shelf on top of each other. Here's a freezer I did, the before after on the left. Everything was just dumped in there. And after we put some baskets in and labeled each basket. And then on the top of the freezer is labels also showing where things are. This one says top shelf, veggies, meat, fish, bottom shelf, big meat, sweets, raspberry, flatbread. So that you could just tell visiting family, can you go down into the freezer and get the raspberries, and there's the label that says where it is, or a piece of meat. So then you don't have to be in charge micromanaging everything of your house. So the goal is to be able to get in a flow when you're working in your house and the kitchen especially. My goal is always to open and have one motion to access the item. If you have to pick up something to get something, that to me kind of breaks up your flow and makes it a harder challenge to get done what you're trying to get done. And then visually, it's so much more peaceful to look at when there's spaces around each item and not things are not stacked. Some people want to have more choices available. You know, this might be too lean for someone, but visually that's my goal whenever I'm organizing. Donating to Goodwill. These are some of the things they take: appliances, area rugs, bed frames, bicycles, books, cars, clothing, computers, printers, dishes, pots and pans, exercise equipment that are small, I guess, furniture, household furniture, lawn furniture, lamps, media items like CDs, VHS, shoes, sports equipment, televisions, tools, lawn and garden, toys. These are some of the things that are not accepted. There are quite a few things not accepted, so if you ever had a question and you see something on there, those things are not accepted. If you come across valuables, I had one client that had all kinds of old foreign coins, some of them in rare metals and jewelry and various kinds of money. We took them to a respected reseller in the area. This was in California, and he made $2,000 off of all of the various odds and ends that he had. We found some New York World's Fair tickets that were fun find. And then what do you do with all that paper in your office? Well, everybody has their own system, but this is one system where there are 7 places. A paper could be in your inbox, your calendar, the paper could be put, the information can be put on your calendar and then you get rid of the paper, or it could be put in the contacts, your reference files, the wastebasket, action files, or the to-do list. So all information on paper on your desk can probably be fit in one of those 7 spaces. So how are we doing on time?
Yep, it's 2:07, so.
Okay,
Yep.
so here's a little document retention quiz. How long do you know if you should keep a document? How long do you keep tax returns? Which of these documents should you keep forever? And I don't know if, what, W-2s, school transcripts, house sale information, passport, birth, death certificate, adoption, immigration, military, discharge papers, social security card, proof of a satisfied loan. Number 4, why should you save home improvement receipts? Number 5, which of the following unwanted papers should you shred? Social security number, papers with social security numbers that you don't need, birth date, credit card account numbers, name and address, credit card offers, applications, donation requests, driver's license, checks from closed accounts. All the answers to the question. If the document is very difficult to replace or you can't get the information elsewhere, keep it. Keep tax returns forever, but the supporting documentation can be shred 7 years or as your accountant or lawyer professes. And then you want to keep all of those documents forever listed there. You want to save home improvement receipts because you can deduct them from your tax when you sell the house. And organizing services are also a deductible expense in other forms of disposal. If you want to empty a house to get it on the market when you sell it. And then all of those types of information, documents without information listed there, should be shred or burned, if you might have the ability to have a burn pile. So here's some tips. Start easy. postpone the heartfelt items, ask for help. Clutter attracts clutter, so you want to put things back in their homes daily. Just start somewhere. Two do it rule. If it takes less than 2 minutes, do it now. Schedule organizing into your calendar if it's something you want to get done. Memories are for sharing. Connect with a virtual professional home organizer. Avoid drop zones through family communication. So everybody should take their things to their own area. And it can get some help. I can make a huge difference. That was at the selfie spot in Brewer. They have a lot of great places to take
Oh,
pictures.
that's funny.
So I hope you have a well-loved, well-functioning home. And anybody have, if we have any time
Oh, we
for
have time, yeah.
questions, I'm happy to take any.
Yeah, anybody? I know there's a lot of great information there, so, but,
So how do you get started talking to your kids specifically about things like this?
Well, everything that they own needs to have a home. And if it doesn't have a home in their room, then, and it doesn't have a home in the entryway, perhaps, a lot of people have backpack hooks in the entryway, but you could also put that in the closet of their room. You know, from the age of 2, kids can register that things have a home. You know, you have a home, so everything in your room should have a home, and it needs to go back to that area. And so it does take some training with kids, but once you get that done, and how long that will take depends on your consistency with, you know, reviewing it with them. But once that's done, that will be a great life skill for them forever.
Do you have any tips specifically about including them or not including them in making decisions, like you said, with the sorting of what to keep, what to?
Yeah, I
Because
would.
sometimes they like to latch on to things more than.
Yeah, you know, a lot of that I find runs over from the parents. The parents will say, "Oh, she's so attached to this one item, and she just won't let go of anything in her room." A lot of times that is coming from the parents. So if you can get a objective person in, like a professional organizer, that it cuts through any kind of dysfunction that is happening in relationship wise, because you have that outside objective eye. And I've been a teacher, so helping the kids, if you don't have the skill yourself, you know, I would invite an organizer in. But if you have the skill yourself, write you know, actually schedule it into your calendar and spend the time with your kids. And if they're real young, you can decide, let's divide your toys into friends, acquaintances, and strangers. And let's decide that the strangers, we do not want them to live in our house. So once they make those delineations, that can help them to prioritize what to keep.
How about Christmas ornaments? Now, I have them from decades, centuries ago. Yeah, really.
century.
I mean it from, because they're passed down.
Oh,
through,
sure.
And you cannot get rid of
Oh.
some things because they're very valuable antiques, and within the family, you can't get rid of them. But everything seems to grow around. I mean, it's like it's taking up, in the top of our garage, it's taking up a third of the place.
Sounds like you need a good decluttering session.
But the trouble with it is, the only time that I ever get them out is at Christmas time.
Yeah.
Well, I'm not going in that garage in the middle of the winter and declutter.
It's true.
Yeah.
Weather makes a difference, as you know.
Yeah.
Yes,
If
yeah.
you're,
So, I have attempted to, because now I'm in the great-grandmother stage of life, and I'm attempting to say to my girls, you know, this is something that you might want or need, and one of them will take them, and she's very clever. We have these things through our family happen. We have a button collection that goes back to the 1800s. Every generation has donated to that.
Uh-huh.
Of course, I have it now. So, but also postcards that go back into the 1800s.
Mm-hmm.
And so I said, I can't just leave them in the top, you know, so my daughter took them, and she has them now displayed in things on for the wall. She has a
Great.
coffee table with a,
Well,
you know, under
yeah.
glass. And all
Yes.
that.
Great.
So she's clever, but there's just, I often said that I'm the one that's left in the spot where I'm the one closest, I was the one closest to my mother's huge house full of stuff
Yeah.
when she passed. So I'm dragging the detritus of centuries behind me. And I've done fairly well in the last, we sold our large house and went to a small house when we retired. I did very well then. A lot of the antiques went. And one person told me this, and I thought, wow, you know, I don't know if that's gonna work for me. Said, if it means something to you, but it doesn't fit in that house, and people live in smaller places, my children live in, take a picture of it, label it, and then get rid of it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's
And
definitely,
that worked for,
yeah.
you know, for that, it
Yeah.
worked. Once in
Yeah.
a while, I say, geez, I wish I had this or that,
Yeah.
but most of the time, I don't even think about it.
Yeah.
And so there,
Yeah.
but that, there are those things like the buttons. My great grandmother handled those buttons.
Mm-hmm.
And
Do you have those displayed at all?
no, they're in cans upon cans, like old Christmas cans where the fruit cakes came in, somebody might put all their buttons in there.
Yeah.
And,
I think a great craft project would be to sew those all to a piece of fabric and put them up somewhere in a hall wall or something, a piece of fabric that was substantial enough to bear the weight. And, you know, if you can fashion a way to hang it up so that it drapes from a support, so that you can see those things, might be a good way to display that.
there are thousands.
Oh, thousands.
Take a series of pictures, and then there you
That
go.
might do it, and or I can
Little
try to, well, I
slideshow.
never get through thousands, but originally, this wasn't just something that they did for fun. They kept them because they reused them.
Oh,
Mhm.
they make,
Yes, and I mean, the men used to have to button their underclothes and all, there are all kinds of buttons like that. And I did right up until I stopped sewing for my children and my grandchildren and used those buttons. I'd use antique buttons, I'd
Yeah.
use the jet things for shoes
Yeah.
and put them on for eyes
Yeah.
and things like that. But I don't, gosh, I couldn't keep up with it.
No, yeah, you've been the repository of
But that's what
buttons.
they were used for. So I know that over the century or so it's been going on, that people have been, my relatives, my ancestors have been handling those. And it's very, very difficult for me to even think about getting rid of those.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I just can't do it. I guess I just have to.
So
One-
why are you sitting here?
Why am I sitting here? Because I've learned things. I did learn when I had to move from the big house and very, antiques that had been living in this, that I learned that from a friend. That you take a picture of it, you label it, you keep it in your album, and you let it go.
Mm-hmm.
But
If you,
Sounds like you're-
one of those buttons.
It sounds like you could use someone who says, nope, you don't need this can of buttons, you pick one, your favorite one.
Yes, pick a few favorite buttons.
Yeah.
You know,
that's exactly how.
I noticed
Yeah.
when you sorted buttons, it was for a theater company, cause they still make costumes. They
Right.
need
Oh,
those,
yeah.
old buttons.
Yeah.
I would suggest trying to find like a theater company, or
Oh,
someone
yeah.
who actually makes
Yeah.
clothes still and needs
Yes.
the
Well,
authentic
I still
stuff.
do, but I couldn't get through. But that's true, because I also gave fur coats away to a theater group. And, several things
Yes,
like that that came from the 40s or the 30s. I gave those away
Right.
to a theater company, and I never think about that now.
Yeah.
I just
Yeah.
don't.
Hopefully you got some theater tickets for it. I would,
Should've thought of that.
if I were to approach, say you came to me and said, I have this button collection, I just don't know what to do with it. If you felt like it was more than you could handle, the way I would approach it is to go through and pick out your favorites, like they said, and think about how you might want to display them in your home, a small amount that would be, manageable to display on an area that you have in the house. And then the rest, if you don't feel like having it, I would suggest take to, there's the Mariner, it's called Mariner International down in Bangor on the same street where the Bagel Central is, that curved street. And they look at coins, jewelry, military medals, paper ephemera, and buttons. Some buttons can be very valuable, especially if you've had some for a long time. And they can take and look and see if there's something that's particularly valuable. And then you will know if you might be able to sell some of the ones that you don't want, because there's also a kind of plastic that is very valuable that was made, Bakelite. Some buttons are made of Bakelite, and notify your extended family and say, I'm editing out my button collection from our family, and I've chosen the ones that I am in love with, and I have a large assortment. If anybody's interested, please let me know. Here's a picture of them. This is what I'm going to do with mine. But if you don't want them, I'm going to move them on to a theater donation or and sell the ones that I can sell.
Yeah.
That's how I would dice it up if you had to or wanted to.
Even as you're talking along there about the things I could do, I'm getting like this, I'm thinking, oh my God, what a job.
Yes, yes.
Yes, that is part of this,
Yeah,
is that
it's-
feeling
you're
that we
looking at it
get.
like, oh my God,
Just
I'll
the
do that
thought,
tomorrow.
when just the thought of this does that.
Yeah,
You must encounter
Yeah,
that.
but that's-
yeah,
Yeah.
Being overwhelmed, that's
Yes,
how you
yes.
have a business.
And they-
Yes.
Yes, that's true, that's how you stay in business.
little tips to keep people from getting overwhelmed
Yeah.
when we're keeping them focused on the right thing at the right time. If you have, children that you want to have some quality time with when they come to visit, or grandchildren or nieces or nephews, say, hey, here's one can, let's divide out and pick out ones that are our favorites. And
Yeah,
that's
makes
such a good bonding experience that is so unique and interesting for
That's interesting.
family to remember.
Because I remember when my mother would make clothes when we were small, she would get out my grandmother and my great grandmother's buttons, and in a cookie sheet, she would dump them in there. And we would go through, in fact, you need 5 buttons for this, okay? So you find 5
Yeah.
that would look good together or go together. And it was so much fun.
And then they could maybe you could start them having their own collection.
Yes, and maybe get them to solve.
Yeah, a little sneaky there, yeah.
Move it along.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I just realized though that so much of what I value is no longer valued. I love the books and the paper in the hand, and the feel of a book, and now everything's on screen, and they don't need all that space because they have their tablet. Or you were talking about buttons. I used to do a good deal of sewing, but I don't so much now. I don't know anyone who does.
Everybody
And
goes to work.
and so it's so much of what I have, I go, where is there a place for this?
You mentioned something before the buttons. What was, the books. All of my clients when we go through their books, end up with a few books that could be valuable. So I refer them to Bill Lippincott, who used to have a business downtown selling books, is now doing more virtual work. And he sells out of his home in Hamden. So I had one client who had a book worth about $9,000 that she didn't know about in her basement.
Wow.
And he was able to list that and try to sell that for her. And sometimes he will buy items that he thinks he can resell.
Lippincott?
Bill Lippincott, and you're not on Facebook, but if you needed the number, you can get in touch with me. I can give you my card, and I can give you his contact if you're interested.
It's just, probably don't have a lot of valuable like that, but you never know. I do have a few old volumes. So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then libraries are always having great sales.
Indeed.
I was gonna
Oh,
say-
no, I've brought in boxes of books to various libraries for their sales and stuff
Yeah.
like that. I once brought in, I think it was 15 boxes, and they said, "My God, where did you get this?" I said, "Oh, this is only one corner of so,
You had a reader in the family.
yeah,
When my mother passed, there are the shelves of books and things, and most of them had been my father's collections. And he died in 1968. I mean, he died young. So I thought, oh, and I look out the window, you'll appreciate this, because a lot of librarians don't like that. Like have to go through all that. And I saw the library next door to my mother's, and I said, oh God, this is where they're going. And I went over and said first, do you want them?
right. I
Yeah,
check
yeah,
out.
thank you.
I do ask.
And
I ask.
he said, yes, bring them over, and I'll go through them, and he found quite a, because my father loved history and things like
Yeah.
that, and he found
Yeah.
a really wonderful, collection. It was all, they used to sell them in sets back, and it was in pre-1940, and it was all the philosophers.
Uh-huh.
And he said, oh, that was a great find, and I think they sold it.
Uh-huh.
But I said, well, whatever you do, that's what you do. And then there lots of them went into the book sale. And, but I did ask him, because I had been a children's librarian, and I remember people in a school.
Yeah.
The school's library was also used as a town library. So I got so many, what is the yellow magazine, now my mind's
Oh,
going.
National Geographic.
National Geographic.
Oh, good lord.
Oh my
Oh.
God.
No.
I grew up with those, but
Yeah,
I
you-
love
yeah,
they had
but
the
everybody
best
tries to give
pictures.
everybody.
Yeah.
We have the last half century, I think, in the basement.
do you still?
Oh, yeah, and I mean, they used to get, and librarians would go, oh my God.
Yeah, no, that's about the size of it, yeah.
You might consider like retirement homes. Maybe they have,
Yeah.
collage day that they do. Would be
Oh,
great
yes.
for National Geographics.
Anyone with outside wood burner.
Kindling.
I did see somebody wanted a collection offered on Facebook Marketplace for whatever reason, and encyclopedias as well. You just never know what somebody's gonna want.
Yes, they can.
Yeah, for whatever they would use them for, but that was, I just packed that up. I said, good, I'm bringing them over, and I could just walk them across the lawn.
And Goodwill has great libraries, so, if you just, they don't have any value, resale value, I'm a regular Goodwill shopper, and I can make a testament to all the wonderful things that I've been able to find at Goodwill, so, donating there is a wonderful thing too.
It is, yeah. Oh, yeah, I'm better. After I got out of that big house, and I told all my friends, I'm going to be a minimalist. You watch, I'm gonna be a minimalist. And I am orderly. I don't like messes in my house, and I like to keep it clean like
Yeah,
that. I
yeah.
wanted that little house.
Yeah,
And one of my friends walked in, and she says, well, I guess you failed at that too, didn't you?
Oh,
It's a huge job going
Yeah.
from big house to
Oh,
a
yeah.
little house.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And now I have my grandmother's diaries. And my sister sent them. And
Oh,
she
wow.
said, well, what do you want me to do? Because she was going into assisted living.
Uh-huh.
And
Yeah.
she really did a job, but
Yeah.
I said, well, yes, we can't get rid of those. Those have got to, that's gotta go down to the family.
Yeah.
But you have people who want them, you think you
Oh,
have
yes,
enough family?
I have that one daughter, well, they all would want them, but they don't live in large places anymore. They have apartments, so they have smaller homes.
Right.
Mandy's house is bigger.
Yeah.
So she's gonna be me for this generation.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah,
Yeah.
she's the new
always-
Susan, yeah.
Yeah, and she's clever, she can do neat things.
Good, good,
But I just can't do that.
yeah. Well, anybody else? Pat, did you have something?
Yeah, just a quick question. Typically, say unpaid bills, no, paid bills, I'm sorry, not unpaid bills. Paid
We
bills.
toss out the
Express. How long would you keep that, like about a year?
That's about what I suggest for
Okay.
people when I'm doing their filing systems. You know, everybody has different reasons to keep some things
Right.
longer, but yeah.
Okay.
Oh, going off of that, was there a reason to keep the tax returns forever, or?
You never know what you might need them for.
Okay.
That's what my one of my clients' accountants recommends. So that's what I recommend.
Okay.
The bulk of the material, which is the supportive information, can be shred after 7 to 10 years
Mhm.
is the agreed time. But you just never know what kind of information you're going to need, and you always want to be able to prove what happened at some point.
Because I know the IRS shreds everything at 7. And
I always remembered 7 as the
Mhm.
deadline when they couldn't reach back anymore.
Well,
It was
the-
generally 3, but then
Yeah.
if you had taken, there was another provision that if you had done either carryover loss or blah, 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 there was some other provision where you had to keep it another 3, and you added 1. You know, just to make it 7.
And then they say if fraud is suspected, they can go back however long they want. So, you can be, it's all individual, what your comfort zone on that
Yeah,
is.
probably, yeah,
I take a picture of everything, all my supportive documents, so I have everything represented in the digitally as well as
Yeah,
paper.
that's a good idea.
yeah.
So then you can,
Yeah, that's good.
And I find for bills, like unpaid bills or bills, if you're an online banker, like we are, then it's all there. You can just go back and say, there, I paid that bill on that day, and that's
Right.
where I did it, right there. And also PayPal. I pay almost anything I can with PayPal because they keep fantastic records.
mm-hmm,
I just haven't gone very digital. I'm
Yeah.
still paper,
yeah.
and I'm
That's
finding
okay.
that to be a little bit of a problem now.
Getting harder, yeah,
Getting
yeah.
forced to have digital.
I find it really, well, I'll probably be the one that gets hacked and lose all my money or something.
Don't say
I
that.
find it very,
Yeah,
very
yeah.
convenient for a person
Oh.
who hates paper to be around, and I just
Mhm.
throw it in a pile and I don't
Yeah,
pay
it's a good
attention.
alternative.
It's
for-
there,
yeah.
I can go,
Yeah.
there it is, right there, it's click, click, click,
Yeah.
there it is.
And you can find it on
Oh,
your
yes.
digital format? You
Oh,
can
yes,
find what you
yeah.
need?
Yeah, oh, yes, at all times. In fact, PayPal, I once ordered a T-shirt, and they sent me 6. And I said, no, I didn't want 6. Well, they said, you sent us 6, and you didn't tell us within 24 hours. Well, I said, I'm sorry. And I went to PayPal, how I paid them.
Yeah,
PayPal paid me back for those immediately,
oh,
and then went after them.
oh, okay,
And-
good,
and
well, that's good.
So I ended up with 6 of the same T-shirts and $127 back. So they will do all that, and so I'm not, and I've got the record of it.
Good,
I've
good.
got the
Yeah.
record of it in
Yep.
my records.
No, no.
Have you ever heard of trying to get rid of a lot of tools and some big stuff too? I know I need to sort because I'm still fairly handy, it's just that my husband tended to have 6 of everything and I really only need 1.
Yeah.
And maybe a backup if something breaks terribly, you need to reach again. But anyway, I was thinking, there's got to be, is somewhat sexist, young men or women, but you think of shop and mail, but still, someone who's trying to set up a shop or something like that, and how to get in touch with them, and I just want them used, you know,
Yeah.
that kind of thing.
Well, if they're old and have antique value, I always go into the antiques marketplace in Bangor and look around for who has tool booths, if they might be interested in buying the old tools.
Antiques marketplace.
Yeah. But for modern tools, I would suggest if you find somebody that's adept at Facebook Marketplace, people are looking at that all the time, and I've had great luck selling useful items on Facebook Marketplace. If you,
Okay, I've written that down, I'll have to.
all they have to do is join the group for your area where you live,
Mhm.
and then post the pictures to and into that group through the app. So if you find somebody that can help you out with that, that usually can move things along fairly quickly.
Okay, good, that's, thank you.
Yeah.
Where is the antique marketplace in Bangor?
Right on the main road. I think it
Downtown, didn't it?
Downtown.
Main Street, yeah.
next. Let's see what it's next to. There was a music store down there, sort of across from the Children's Museum.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's right there on that, but as you turn the corner and go up Main Street, it's right on the right-hand side, about halfway up. on the
Yeah.
second.
Oh, okay.
My grandson, one of my grandsons, when he wasn't, I was cleaning my mother's, I came across his pocketbook. It was a crocodile. My sister had when she was young. And it was a crocodile, baby crocodile made into a pocketbook. And I thought, oh God. So I kept trying to sell it in all the yard sales we were getting rid of. Nobody wanted it. So Tommy says, my father has a place down in the antique something or other.
Marketplace.
Yeah, and he's trying to get, so can I take that, Granny? And I said, go ahead. He got $75 for it.
Yeah, it's all about the audience, right?
Yes,
Getting in front of the right
It really
audience.
is all about the audience.
Yeah.
And I live pretty far out. I mean, this is already fairly rural, and I'm farther out than that. So trying to find your audience, or
Yeah,
trying to
yeah.
find the audience for this particular thing is the biggest hassle I'm gonna have.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
True.
that's
Yeah.
why the internet is your friend in that regard. eBay too, for small items that don't cost a lot to ship.
Yeah.
But then eBay also has an option that you can do just local pickup too. So people all around your area could be looking at eBay
Oh.
and looking for things that are locally available
Mhm.
to pick up that might be too heavy to ship,
Yeah,
furniture.
that's where a lot of my stuff's gonna be, it's just, I'm not gonna ship it.
Yeah.
Right.
Dover and Dexter, Swap and Sell, it's called, I think.
Yeah.
And that is terrific. I mean, people sell things on
That's
there
right,
like
yeah.
mad.
Yeah, if you can get
And they
somebody
come
to
and
help
pick
you
it
with
up,
that,
you know, you
yeah.
don't have to
Is that on?
That's on
It's on
Facebook.
That's on
as well.
Facebook,
Market-
okay.
Yeah.
Marketplace, yeah.
And people look for their own area or their own
Sure.
houses
Yeah.
and things.
Yep.
Dover and Dexter Swap and Shop
Yeah.
on Facebook.
Well,
I guess I'm gonna have to go on Facebook.
I guess. Somebody to help
You
you,
just hear
yeah.
so many tales about Facebook and the stuff it's done, and
Oh, I
I've
know.
just avoided it, I
Yeah,
just.
well, for some things, yeah.
Yeah, just ignore all the political stuff
Yeah,
and the rants
exactly.
and the raves.
Yeah.
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 Well, Kim, thank you so much. It's been,
Sure.
it's been great. We got so much great
Yes.
information.
Oh,
It's
good.
been
I'm glad.
wonderful. Thank you.
Thanks
Yay.
for
Thank you.
coming.
Yay.
Thanks for setting up the tech part.
Oh, yeah.
And John, maybe when you upload it, if it's okay with Kim to put your website address, is that okay?
Sure.
We
Yeah,
could put
yeah,
that?
yeah, we can do that
Yeah.
also. Yep.
That would be
Great.
awesome.
Right.
No, that's great. Thank you.
Sure.
You know, with your range of experience, I can see how your mind works. You'd be excellent at this, because you've just done enough varied things in your background.
Yes, that was
You
interesting.
connect the
Yes.
dots. You
Yeah.
go like, you have this lateral thinking going on.
Yeah,
It's-
that-
It's neat.
Thank you.
Yeah, I bet your personal assistant